Hey there, my name is Christina and welcome to my channel. I've been posting vlogs since I moved to London 2 months ago, but today I thought I would do something different and share my 5 tips for anyone who is training for their first marathon. For context, I did my very first marathon this past July. It was the San Francisco Marathon. I vlogged my trip, my weekend, so you can watch that here. And like I said, it was my first marathon. I had done 2 half marathons before, but it was my first time really committing to training and trying to get the best time that I could. My goal time for that marathon was 4.5 hours, and I ended up running it in 4 hours and 9 minutes. I really attribute that to the training that I put in before the marathon. So just a disclaimer, I'm not a trainer, I'm not a professional or anything. These are just some tips that I wanted to share that helped me do my best for the marathon. So the first tip is to stick to a detailed schedule. I used this one by Hal Higdon. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I'll link it below. It just lays out week by week what you need to run on every single day, and there are rest days included as well as days to do cross training. So I basically transferred that schedule to a Google Doc, and every day I would highlight whatever I ran. And I liked using the Google Doc because it allowed me to be flexible, and I would move different days around depending on my schedule, because while I was training I was working full-time 40 hours a week, and sometimes I wouldn't have time to run 8 miles on a Tuesday morning, so I would kind of adjust, change that to 3 miles and make my weekend run a little longer, things like that. The key thing is to be consistent and to run as often as possible with the proper rest. If you look at the training schedule, it starts off just with running 1.5 miles, 2 miles, just a few times a week, and then it gradually builds up and you'll add more mileage. And before I knew it, I was running 10 miles and I felt fine, which I never thought I would get to that point. If you run little by little, very consistently, then you'll be surprised at the mileage that you'll be able to accomplish. So having that schedule, I think, is the #1 thing you need. Most marathon training programs or schedules are 6 months long. I know some people even say to train for a year. I trained for about 7 months. Do some research, find a training plan that works for you. I really like the one that I used, and just stick to it. Tip number 2 is to invest in some running gear, and I don't just mean, you know, cool outfits and shoes, which those can help you feel motivated as well. But if there's one piece of equipment that I would invest in, it is a running watch. I have this one by TomTom. As you're running, you can track your average pace, you can track your actual mileage. That way you don't need to measure beforehand, you know, how far you're running. You can just kind of follow along with your watch. And it tells you other things like how many calories you burned and whatnot. And my watch also has a companion app on my iPhone. I can transfer the data there and I'll have a log. And so that way I can look back and see what I've accomplished. Having these watches are great, especially for tracking your average pace, because if you set a goal time for the marathon, you can obviously calculate what your average pace needs to be. So that way you can see where you're at and how prepared you are before the marathon to meet your goal pace. And one other piece of gear that really helped me was a running waist pack, like this one. And you just strap it around your waist, and you can fit your phone, your keys, you can fit your ID and credit cards, whatever you might need, maybe even a small energy gel or energy chew. I like this because I don't really like having my phone strapped to my arm since I'm moving that, so I like it on my waist better. I didn't use my running pack for the actual marathon, but I did use it for my training to have my phone on me for emergencies, and also to listen to podcasts, which brings me to my 3rd point. So tip number 3 is to listen to podcasts while you run. I do like listening to music when I'm doing a shorter run or a sprint, because I feel like that really gets you motivated. But when I'm doing a longer run, I like to listen to podcasts because I feel like it passes the time faster, and it just gives your mind something to think about other than the running. I find that when I listen to music on a long run, I do zone out, but it just gets really boring. So having a podcast to listen to makes it a little bit more interesting. So some of my favorite podcasts are Anna Faris is Unqualified, which is just really funny, and you can kind of pick and choose, you know, depending on which celebrities you like, since she has celebrity guests that come onto her show. I also really like Ask Me Another, which is an NPR podcast, and it's a trivia one. So they do like word games, pop culture trivia. They have celebrity guests on there as well. And another one that I like is This American Life, standard podcast that a lot of people enjoy. It's basically stories based around a single theme for each episode. So find some podcasts, give them a listen, make sure you download them before you go running instead of streaming them, just so that they don't cut out while you're running. My fourth tip is to train or run with somebody. In my case, I was very lucky that my dad signed up for the marathon with me, and he's an experienced marathoner. The one that we ran this year was his 10th marathon. If you can, train with somebody who has a little bit more experience than you so that they can be your pacer. When you're running by yourself, it's harder to push yourself to, you know, get that faster pace. But running with my dad, who is more experienced, I found myself trying to keep up with him as best I could and really pushing my average pace to go down. Also, when you're doing the training program, you're gonna get to a point where you're running 13 miles, 15 miles, and it's really hard to be motivated to run that distance or wake up early enough to have time to run that distance. So having a buddy to just encourage each other, keep each other accountable, it really helps. My fifth and final tip is to eat well and sleep well. For eating well, I don't just mean to eat healthily, which that is important as well. Your diet definitely affects your performance, but also just to make sure you're eating enough. If you're doing a long run and you need to have a snack with you, make sure you have that with you. After you do a long run, make sure you replenish those calories that you burned. And to go along with that, stay hydrated. I had a running water bottle, which is, it's just like a very lightweight bottle that you can squeeze. So it's easier than, you know, if you're running with like a screw top bottle or something like that. So make sure you have enough fluids and food after you run. And sleep well. Sleep is so important, especially when you're doing early morning runs. For most of my runs, I had to get up at 5 a.m. In order to fit in the mileage before work or to run before it got too hot, since I was training in Los Angeles in the spring and summer. Getting enough sleep the night before will ensure that you can get up in the first place and that your body won't be too tired to complete the run. So there you have it. There are some tips from someone who ran their first marathon this year. To anybody who's thinking about running a marathon, I say just go for it. Just make sure you leave enough time to train and that you actually stick to that training. And to anybody who has signed up for a marathon or has just begun their training, I wish you the best of luck. It's going to be such a good experience. I hope you found these tips helpful. If you did, please give this video a like and leave any of your own tips or questions in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.